In 2.4, we're going to work on solving polynomial equations, both in factored form, so if they're already factored, as well as if we need to factor first. So we're going to go over what happens once it's already factored, but in your homework, you're going to practice factoring and then set those factors equal to 0 and solve. So if we can think back to what we did in 2.5 and 2.6 and even 2.3, we're looking to see what can we pull out of our general form. So as we look at our standard form right here, we're looking to see, well, what does x squared and 2x have in common? And they have an x in common, so that's what we pull out. So if you have 2x's and you take 1 out, you're left with 1. And then if you have 2x and you take the x out, you're left with 2. And so this is our factored form. Same thing with the next one. As we looked at x squared plus 5x minus 24, if we think back to what we did, we went 1 times negative 24 because it's in standard form. It goes to 1 constant. We don't have a common or greatest common factor, so we just go 1 times negative 24, which is negative 24. Factors are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and we're looking for the pair that gives me the 5 in the middle. And so to get 5 in the middle, we need to do 3 and 8. And then in order to get a positive 5, this is a negative 3. And then we did box method just like before. And so that's how they're getting you a factored form. So they're saying this is x squared. Our last number is negative 24. The pair that we picked was negative 3x and 8x. And then we take out our greatest common factor. So greatest common factor of the first row is an x. Greatest common factor of our second row is an 8. Because remember, 8's your smaller number and it divides into 24 evenly. First column, they both have an x in common. Second column, our smallest number is negative 3 and it divides into 24 evenly, so we can write it down. And then that's how they're getting the x minus 3 and x plus 8. So this is our factored form. So we know how to factor using the box method. And then the only thing that's going to change from what we did previously to now is once we have it in factored form, we're going to set those equal to 0 and solve. So example 1, they've already done the they've factored it for us already. And then we take each factor and set it equal to 0. So notice that we have two factors here. We have the 2x and we have the x minus 4. And so we take each of those, so the 2x, and we set it equal to 0. And then we take the x minus 4 and we set it equal to 0. And then we just solve like we normally would solve. So if I want to get x all alone, the 2 next to the x is multiply, so we undo it by dividing. So we get x is equal to 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. If I was solving the other one, I'm trying to get x all alone, and it's connected to the 4 through minus. So we add 4 to both sides, so we get x equals 4. And so as we look at our solutions, these are our solutions for those two problems. We're going to look at x equals 0 and x equals 4. If I look at B, same idea. We've got two factors. We have x minus 3 as a factor, and we have x minus 9 as a factor. And so as we look, we're going to go x minus 3 equals 0, and we have x minus 9 equals 0. And then we solve. So again, to get x all alone, we're going to add 3 to both sides. So we get x equals 3. To get the x all alone on the x minus 9, it's minus, so we add. And so we get x is equal to 9. Again, that's our solution for that problem. So as we look, we always want to make sure that we factor it first, and then we just set them equal to 0. So as we're looking, we're going to just look at 1, 2, and 3, and the same idea. Again, we have two factors, so go ahead and try that. Remember, each one has two factors. So one factor is x, the other factor is x minus 1. One factor is 3t, my other factor is t plus 2. And then I have z minus 4 as a factor, and I have z minus 6 as a factor. And we're just going to set those equal to 0 and solve each time. So we're going to have x is equal to, oops, sorry about that. Delete, there we go. So we've got x is equal to 0, and then we have x plus 1 is equal to, or x minus 1 is equal to 0. X equals 0, I can't do anything with. It's already set equal, so we're done. But x minus 1 equals 0, we're going to add 1 to both sides to get x is equal to 0 plus 1, which is 1. And then when I do the next one, same thing. I'm going to go 3t is equal to 0. And then I'm going to go t plus 2 is equal to 0. And again, I'm going to solve. So the first one, I'm just going to divide by 3. So we get t is equal to 0, because 0 divided by 3 is 0. And then if I look at t plus 2, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides to get t all alone. So t is equal to negative 2. And then we'll need to do number 3, I guess, over to this side. So first time we're going to go z minus 4 is equal to 0. And then we're going to do z minus 6 is equal to 0. And we solve. So we're going to add 4 to both sides to get z is equal to 4. And then for z minus 6, we're going to add 6 to both sides to get z is equal to 6. And again, we're just solving each of those. The only thing that's a little bit different is for you guys on your assignment, sometimes you're going to have to factor first. They talk about when 2 or more roots of an equation are the same number, the equation has repeated roots, which is fine. You'll notice that if I look at example A, notice that the 2x plus 7 and 2x minus 7, those are not exactly the same because they're both pluses. So we're going to go 2x plus 7 equals 0 and 2x minus 7 equals 0. So I still have 2 different values. I've got a plus and I've got a minus. So notice that it's still 2 different ones. And we still solve the same way. So this is, for solving for x, the first step is to get rid of plus 7. And then our next step is to get rid of the 2 in front of the x. So we're going to divide. And so that's one solution. And then my other problem, I'm going to get rid of the minus 7 by adding 7 this time. So we get 2x is equal to 7. And then to get the 2 to go away, we divide by 2. And so we get x is equal to positive 7/2. So notice how your answers are similar, but they're still different. One's positive and one's negative. For B, notice that this one, because you have a little power of 2 here, that really means that you have x minus 1 and x minus 1. But if I only have to set one of them equal to 0 because I get the same answer either way. So x minus 1 equals 0. If I'm going to solve that, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So we get x is equal to 1. And I really end up with only one solution there because both of them give me the same answer. And then as we look at the next value, we've got 3 terms. It's not going to change anything. We have one factor of x plus 1. We have another factor of x minus 3. And then we have that third factor of x minus 2. And so we need to make sure that we're solving all of them. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides to get x is equal to negative 1. We need to make sure that we add 3 to both sides to get x is equal to 3. And then on our last one, we're going to add 2 to both sides to get x is equal to 2. So this one actually ends up with 3 solutions. And you want to make sure you're really careful with that because sometimes you're going to end up with one solution, sometimes you're going to end up with multiple solutions. And so you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to what your problem looks like. So again, you'll notice that we've got, these are our 2 different problems, or 3 different problems. Again, as we monitor progress, it's the same idea. We're going to divide that or break that into different problems. And so go ahead and try that on your own really quick. So just pause the video and try your monitoring progress and then check your answers. And if you have questions, make sure you come back and ask. So number 4, you should have got -5/3 and -8/5. Number 5, you should have got b is equal to -7. And number 6, you should have had d is equal to 2, d is equal to -6, and d is equal to -8. If you're not sure how you got those, make sure you ask, or how I got those. Okay, example 3 says factor out the greatest common factor first, and then you're going to go from there. So as you look at 4x to the 4th and 24x to the 3rd, remember how we looked at our smallest number is 4. Does it divide into 24 evenly? It does. So we know that that's part of our greatest common factor, or the number part of our greatest common factor. And then when we look at the letters, we've got, they both have an x, and we go for the smallest power. So as we look at x to the 4th and x to the 3rd, we're going to take out x to the 3rd. And so once you know what your greatest common factor is, then we take that out. So I'm going to take out a 4 and x to the 3rd out of each piece. And so that's going to give me an x and 8. Because, sorry, not 8. 24 divided by 4 is 6. It's a little bit better. If they ask us to solve, then like if this had an equal 0, and that's the part you want to look for. If there's an equal 0, then you would solve. And so if it has equal 0, then that ends up being we have to set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve it from there. If there's not an equal 0, like in this case, there wasn't one, but as soon as you put that equal 0 there, then you need to solve. So we divide by 4, and we get x to the 3rd is equal to 0. We would take the 3rd or the cubed root, but that's still going to give us 0. So that's not a big deal. Over here, we would subtract 6 from both sides to get x is equal to -6. Sorry about that. And then again, as we solve equations by factoring, it's the same. Like up above, I just jumped a little bit ahead. So as we look, we'll just stop for just a sec.
Also, Eileen Green to the attendance office. Jake Nico to the attendance office.
As we look at A, what goes into 2x and 8x is a 2x. And then if we take 2x out of the first term, we're left with an x. If we have 8x divided by 2x, we're left with a 4 is equal to 0. And just like I said before, because it has the equal 0 sign, we're going to set each of them equal to 0 and solve from there. And so we're going to divide both sides by 2. So we get x is equal to 0. And then we're going to subtract 4 to get x is equal to -4. And those will be our solutions this time. We have 2. If we look at B, same idea. Notice that it's not in standard form. So our very first step is to get it in standard form. So we've got 6n squared. We're going to move the 15 over by adding. And we're going to move the -9 over by adding. So now we have it set equal to 0. And now we want to take out a greatest common factor. So our 6 is our smallest number. And our factors of 6 are 1 and 6, or 2 and 3. If I look at 6, does 6 go into 15 evenly? It doesn't, so we just cross it off. And then we look at 3. Does 3 go into 15 evenly? It does. Does 3 go into 9 evenly? It does. And so because 3 goes into both of them, that's what I'm going to take out. So I'm going to take out a 3, and then I look, do I have the same letter in all 3 terms? So I have an n here, an n here, but because I don't have an n in the last term, then I can't take it out. And so now we're going to go 6 divided by 3, which is 2, n squared. 15 divided by 3, which is 5n. And 9 divided by 3, which is 3. And so from here, we're going to continue to factor. So we're going to go 2 times 3, which is 6. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6, or 2 and 3. We're trying to come up with 5. Now notice I can get 5 2 different ways. I can get 5 with 1 and 6 if I do 6 subtract 1. I also can get 5 with 2 and 3. But what we want to be careful with is look to see how it multiplies.
come to the main office. Riker
Sorry about that.
Ari Bell, Emma Bodley,
So
Benjamin Bone, Brinley Bruff, Sienna Burnside, Andrew Christensen, Skylar Dixon. Please come to the main office.
So -1 times 6 is a -6, and we need it to be a positive 6. So that's why that one doesn't work. And then we're going to do box method. And so our first term is our 2n squared. Sorry. And our last term is 3. And the pair that we pick is 2n and 3n. And then we're taking out greatest common factor. So greatest common factor of the first row is 2n. Greatest common factor of my last row is 3. Greatest common factor of my first column is n. Greatest common factor of my last column is 1. And once you have it in factored form, then we can set our factors equal to 0. So this would be n plus 1. And this is a 3 still, but here's the thing with the 3. I can divide the 3 out right now because it's just a normal number. It doesn't have a letter. The ones up above where we set it equal to 0 had a letter. And now this one doesn't, so we don't need to worry about it. And so we're going to go 2n plus 3 equals 0, and n plus 1 is equal to 0. And then we're just going to solve. So we get 2n is equal to -3, and then we'll divide both sides by 2 to get n is equal to -3/2. If you put that in your calculator, you're going to get -1.5. Your computer should take either. If you divide and it comes out like not a clean fraction, then you need to make sure you leave it as a fraction. If it ends nice, you should be able to put it in as a decimal and it should be okay. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides, so we get n is equal to -1. So our solutions this time are going to be either -3/2 and -1 or -1.5 and -1. As you're looking through this solving equation part, again, make sure that you take out the greatest common factor first, which is what they're asking you to do on 8, 9, and 10. So go ahead and pause the video and try those on your own and then come back and see if you're right. So you should be getting on number 8, you should get a is equal to 0 and a is equal to -5. On 9, you should have taken out a 3s as your first step and got s minus 3 equals 0. So that when you set them equal to 0, you should have s is equal to 0 and s is equal to 3. And then your last one, you needed to make sure that you moved them to both to the same side as your first step. And then when you take out your greatest common factor, you should have taken out a 2x and got 2x minus 1. And then when you set them equal to 0, you should have got x is equal to 0 and x is equal to positive 1/2. If you didn't get those answers, make sure you're asking for some help. And then our last part is modeling with mathematics. So it talks about the arch of a fireplace using this equation, and it wants you to find the width of the arch at floor level. So it wants to know what the width is from here to here. So what you're going to do is if you look at your equation, all you do is set them equal to 0. And so you're just going to go x plus 18 equals 0, and x minus 18 is equal to 0, and you're going to solve. So we subtract 18, so x is equal to -18. And then you're going to add 18 and add 18, so you get x is equal to positive 18. And basically what they're saying is this value right here is -18 spaces from 0. Remember, 0's here. And then my other value is positive 18 spaces to the other side of 0. So if you have 18 spaces here and you have 18 spaces here, then you'd add them together, which means that your width would be 36. And then it's basically the same thing when you're looking at 11. It talks about a mine shaft. It's the same idea. If you're looking at that, your door, you're trying to figure out from here to here what the distance is. So again, if you solve these, you get x is equal to -4 and x is equal to +4. So it's negative 4 spaces this way, and it's 4 spaces this way. But when we talk about distance, distance is always positive. And so if you've got 4 and 4, then the entrance of your mine shaft is going to be 8. And in this case, does it tell us? So this would be 8 feet. And this was in inches, so 36 inches. All right, that should be good for this lesson. Make sure you're asking questions if you have some. Thank you.